Welcome back to the Deep Dive, the only place where we take the high-speed drama of Formula One and extract the knowledge you absolutely need. We're in the DRS zone, and if you watched the Las Vegas Grand Prix and thought the action was confined to the track, you missed the real earthquake. The monumental fallout from the technical bay has absolutely ripped the Drivers' Championship wide open.
High energy is definitely the right word. I mean, the stakes just could not be higher right now. And the drama we're about to dissect, it didn't involve tires or, on-track contact. It all centered on a single piece of wood and a ruling that just changed the trajectory of the entire season.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
So today our mission is to unpack a technicality so fine, so delicate, that it's the central metaphor for this entire deep dive. The margin that has relaunched this championship is officially as thin as a single sheet of high-quality printing paper.
Yeah, and that's not even an exaggeration. We're talking about approximately 0.11 millimeters. That seemingly tiny amount has officially put the championship into a state we can only describe as, well, red hot. So we need to analyze the specific devastating reasons behind the McLaren double disqualification, talk about how Max Verstappen basically received a gift from the sky, and then dive into all the chaos and surprising performances across the rest of the grid.
I just have to stop you there. A piece of paper. That means millions of pounds, the effort of hundreds of people, and a potential world championship hinge on a measurement that is smaller than a human hair. That is just staggering. Okay, let's get into it. This monumental technical knockout. McLaren's painful 0-0.
Right. So we were talking about the technical directive for the car's plank. For anyone who might not be familiar, this is basically a sacrificial wooden plate that runs along the bottom of the car. Its purpose is fundamentally a safety measure. It's designed to limit how low the car can run to prevent excessive ground effect, which can get really dangerous. And the rule is written in stone. At the end of the race, that plank must have a minimum thickness of 9 millimeters, period. If it wears down too much, the car is illegal.
And the post-race measurements for McLaren were just absolutely crushing, weren't they?
Oh, they were definitive. There was no wiggle room. Lando Norris's plank was measured at 8.88 millimeters. So that put it 0.12 millimeters under the legal limit. That's barely more than the piece of paper we were talking about.
Wow. And Piastri was even worse.
Yeah, Oscar Piastri's car was 0.26 millimeters under, so it was an undeniable infraction no matter how tiny that difference seems.
Of course, McLaren fought this.
Yeah.
They had to. They must have put up a pretty strong defense, especially when they were so close to being legal.
They did, yeah. They argued a few different things. First, they cited factors like, not enough dry practice time because of red flags and rain. They said that stopped them from properly setting the ride height for a full race distance. But second, and this is the critical part, they blamed unexpected porpoising, that bouncing motion.
Wait, okay, why would bouncing affect the plank wear so much during the race itself?
Because the plank only wears down when it actually hits the ground. So if the car is bouncing up and down, that vertical oscillation, the wooden plate is just being smashed into the asphalt again and again at high speed. It's like grinding it down with repeated impacts. And they argued that the wear was way beyond what their simulations predicted.
But the FIA was having none of it. Why not give them some leniency, especially if they're blaming something like uncontrollable bouncing?
Because the rulebook, it just removes all subjectivity from this. The FIA rejected the defense completely, and their reasoning was so direct. The regulations do not allow for any difference based on why it happened or how small the infraction was. If the measurement is below 9 millimeters, it is a sanction. There are no asterisks, no gray areas for almost compliant.
McLaren lost all their points. Just like that.
And this is where the story pivots from a technical detail into this huge championship narrative. Before this DQ, Max Verstappen, even after winning the Grand Prix, he was still a long way behind Lando Norris in the standings. He needed something huge to happen, a 0-0, like a crash or a reliability failure for both McLarens.
Exactly. That 0-0 seemed like a pipe dream, really the only way back for him. And instead, he gets this incredible opportunity, this gift from the sky, delivered by the rulebook. It's an unbelievable twist, and it suddenly thrusts Max right back into a title fight that, honestly, looked like it was slipping away just moments before.
So if we look at the immediate aftermath of this ruling, what does this actually do to the championship standings? It's a radical shift. After the disqualifications, the gap just evaporates. Lando Norris is now only 24 points ahead of Max Verstappen. But crucially, the tension is now massive because he's also only 24 points ahead of his own teammate, Oscar Piastri. So with 2.5 races left, including a sprint weekend coming up, the championship is just intensely close again.
The psychological pressure on McLaren must just be immense, knowing you lost a championship lead not on the track, but in the garage. And let's not forget Max's actual drive in Vegas, which was the foundation for all of this.
Oh, his performance was commanding. Simple as that. He was completely uncontestable from the first corner. He just had a superior pace to everyone else, especially in the long runs. It was, a pretty calm race for him, almost a bit boring out front because his speed advantage was just that big. A memorable win no matter what happened after.
But now the gap is down to 24 points. His focus must be just laser-like, and his confidence completely restored while his rivals are probably shaking.
That's the key psychological shift right there. The application of this rule has sent shockwaves through McLaren. Max Verstappen is now the re-energized hunter. The difference is real. The Predator smells blood. He is back in the hunt, fueled by this gift from the stewards.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome to DRS Zone. Don't forget to subscribe for more F1 content and in-depth analysis like this. We're just getting into the performance highs and lows across the rest of the Las Vegas grid. Let's move on to the rest of the grid then and look at the chaos and some of the brilliance we saw. Sticking with McLaren, how did Norris and Piastri actually compare on track?
Well, Norris was very calculating, very intelligent after the start. He made really only one big mistake. He over-defended P1 at the first corner, almost tangled with Max, ran wide, and lost 2 spots right away to Russell and Verstappen. But after that, he drove a really conservative race and just minimized the damage. If he hadn't been disqualified, he would have extended his lead to 42 points.
And you contrast that with his teammate, Oscar Piastri. The descriptions of his weekend were pretty brutal.
Oh, Piastri had a genuinely miserable weekend. He was described as, subdued, gray, just struggling for speed. Of course, there were whispers about maybe the team prioritizing one car, but Piastri himself just shut that down. He said the issue wasn't the car, he had the exact same equipment as Lando, but that he had personally lost speed. He really struggled in dirty air and only gained 1 position against Kimi Antonelli, and that was because the Italian got a 5-second penalty.
Which brings us perfectly to Mercedes, who quietly had a strategic masterclass and put themselves firmly in the lead for the Constructors' Championship.
Yep, Mercedes now leads Red Bull by 40 points and Ferrari by 53, and that's a huge advantage built mostly on their strategy in Vegas, particularly with their youngest driver, Kimi Antonelli. His race strategy was just wild. He pitted on lap 2 for hard tires, which usually spells disaster, but he managed an incredible 48-lap stint, the longest of the entire race, while keeping a great rhythm.
48 laps on one set of tires. That's phenomenal management. How did he hold off drivers like Leclerc and Piastri doing that?
It was just pure tire management mastery. A really clinical approach that got him a P3 podium after all the DQs were applied. But what makes it a masterclass is when you compare it to his teammate. That driver battled Max early on, pushed his tires really hard for just a couple of laps to hold position, and, well, he cooked them. Just completely fried them and suffered badly late in the race. Antonelli, though, he pampered his tires and got a huge reward.
Okay, before we get to the teams that really suffered, we have to give a nod to Carlos Sainz, who had a good pride-building weekend for Ferrari.
Yeah, Sainz was genuinely memorable in qualifying on Saturday, especially in those difficult conditions. He stayed very close to the eventual winner. He ended up finishing P5 after the disqualifications, which made him the first of the rest.
He left feeling proud, and it showed the car had pace when everything was right.
All right, now for the chaos. Let's look at Ferrari's horror show, which seems to come from some really basic flaws in the car.
It was a disaster of a weekend for them. They're clearly struggling with a massive problem with the car's behavior in the rain. It just becomes unpredictable. The absolute low point came in qualifying. Lewis Hamilton became the first Ferrari driver since Giancarlo Fisichella, way back in Abu Dhabi in 2009, to qualify last in Q1.
Explain what happened to Hamilton there, because it sounds like a tiny misunderstanding cost him everything.
It was a simple but monumentally costly mistake. Hamilton had the energy and the speed for one final lap to get out of Q1. The team was on the radio telling him to keep pushing past the finish line. But instinctively, Lewis lifted off the throttle after he crossed the physical finish line because he saw the red lights. Session over. The crucial detail in Vegas, though, is that the electronic timing loop, the thing that actually registers the lap, is placed after the physical finish line where the lights are.
So he lifted, thinking the lap was done, but the car never crossed the sensor at full speed.
Exactly that. He lifted just enough that the lap wasn't registered as a final attempt. It cost him his one last chance to make the cut. And that detail deciding your qualifying is just a brutal summary of Ferrari's whole weekend.
And the wider context here is so painful for them. They're currently 4th in the Constructors.
It's the ultimate humiliation inside that team, P4. behind a team that really only scores points with one of its cars. It just confirms this deep internal frustration, and you hear significant rumors of unrest, of turmoil spreading through the organization. That frustration is real.
And we're hearing similar unsettling noises from the Aston Martin garage, too. The pressure isn't just on the driver.
Aston Martin's reality check in Vegas was really sobering. They were, the ninth fastest car on the grid, only ahead of Alpine. Fernando Alonso managed to sneak into Q3 through just pure driving brilliance. But as soon as the race was dry and it came down to pure pace, he went backward, as you'd expect. They just don't have the pace or the aero efficiency.
And Alonso's comments really reflected that lack of faith in the car.
Oh, absolutely. His quote said it all. He said, "What a blessing that we only have 2 Grand Prix left with this car." He's clearly just done with it and ready for the offseason.
But the instability isn't just on track. There are big management rumors swirling now, too, right?
Yeah, the rumors of unrest are loudest here. Reports, mostly coming out of European media, are suggesting the potential dismissal of a key figure, maybe even before the next race. And the name being floated as a replacement is Andreas Seidl, the guy credited with turning McLaren around.
That is an incredibly sensitive situation, especially with the 2026 regulations just around the corner.
It's extremely delicate. If that change happens, Seidl would be their 3rd team principal in 3 years. That level of instability is happening just 2.5 months before the 2026 car design has to be locked in. Aston Martin is languishing in P8 in the constructors. So, while Seidl has a great track record, inheriting that kind of chaos right before a massive rules reset, it's a huge, huge risk.
So after this Las Vegas earthquake, both on and off the track, where does that leave us for the immediate future?
We land in Qatar. The next stop is just days away, and critically, it's a sprint weekend. That means Max Verstappen has more opportunities. Just so many more chances to close that gap with the extra points available on Saturday.
The championship has been completely reset by a technicality thinner than a piece of paper. We're down to a 24-point difference. Max Verstappen has only 1 goal now, that 5th consecutive world championship, and it's suddenly back on the table.
It absolutely is. And the final thought for you to really consider is this. McLaren made a serious fundamental error in Las Vegas. They were fast, they minimized damage on the track, but the technical failure means they made a catastrophic mistake in the garage. And this single minuscule error could ultimately be the thing that cost them the world championship.
What an unbelievable finish to the season this is shaping up to be. You do not want to miss any of it. Make sure you subscribe and follow DRS Zone wherever you get your deep dives. We'll see you next time.